Hello and welcome to it's all special Gadsby's England at the moment, but I've got another phenomenal guest here. We had Henry, who's one of the best in the business, but, if you want to put somebody else who's up there, it's this man, BBC chief football writer, Phil McNulty, somebody who I've known for years. I've had the privilege to have on the show before. He's always my kind of tournament designer, always sort of gives his tips and his thoughts. A football encyclopedia, big Everton fan, we'll give him that, and another absolutely brilliant authority on England. So what are you going to do? You're going to sit through this brilliant opening sequence, and Phil will be right up.
Where's your famous, where's your famous, where's your famous atmosphere? Where's your
Hi there. Well, what else is there but to bring in the great Phil McNulty? Hi, Phil.
Oh. Hi, Lee. How are you doing?
Nice to see you. Welcome to the show, and welcome back to the show. And I was just in the intro saying that you've always been very gracious and helpful, and sort of we've designed the tournament around your, around that. Always, we normally do it at the beginning, but
yeah,
it's always like I know the tournament started.
Sitting in a nice cafe in Marseille was one I remember. Sitting in a hotel reception in Miami was another.
Yeah,
like a world tour.
Are you at home right now? How's things going?
I'm at home in Oxford. Everything's fine. I've been covering the England game so far. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice short journey into Wembley, and I did Italy versus Austria on Saturday evening, and back to Wembley tomorrow night for the England-Germany game.
Yeah, beginning to feel a little bit, getting the palpitations a bit. How are you feeling about it?
Not as confident as some people seem to be. I mean, I know Germany are not the team they were, but they've still got some very good players. And England have been solid rather than spectacular so far. So it'll be interesting to see how both sides shape up. I mean, the big thing, of course, is that now, because of the way the draw has panned out, the side of this draw that England and Germany are both in, while it's nowhere near easy, it's slightly more favourable than the other side, which has got some of the real big hitters in it. So there's quite a prize at stake for whoever wins tomorrow. And as I say, while it's not an easy route at all towards the final, playing Sweden and Ukraine in a potential quarter final, then possibly the Danes and the Czech Republic in the semi-final. We've seen how good a couple of those teams can be, but then you look in the other half of the draw and you have the likes of Belgium, Italy, France, etc. So it's a not bad route for whoever wins tomorrow. That's a big, big prize.
Yeah, I mean, to pick up on your first point, people are sort of, there is a sort of confidence around. I fear that South Africa feeling again when we also heard, maybe not as enthusiastic, but I that's ringing in my ears again of that. And I mean, I sort of said to somebody the other day, what part of Germany makes you feel confident? When I read out Neuer, Hummels, Rudiger, Kroos, Gundogan, Muller, Havertz, to name a few. I mean, I'm not quite sure why people are as confident as they are. They're not a bad lot, are they?
No. Well, there's been a lot of sort of revisiting the game in South Africa over the last couple of days because it was the anniversary, I think it was anyway. I think that's why people were doing it. And I think before the game, everyone was thinking, well, England can't be as bad as this. They're just keeping their powder dry. And then we saw them, and it was, in fact, the fact that they were as bad as we thought they were. There was a game against, was it Tunisia or Algeria? I can't remember now. Algeria. And it was one of the worst games of football I've ever seen. It was in Cape Town. It was that game where Wayne Rooney criticised the fans at the end because obviously he was frustrated by what had gone on. And of course, one of the things that has been mentioned the last couple of days, of course, was the Frank Lampard goal when the score was 2-1 in Bloemfontein, and how that might have changed things. But any of us who were at that game saw that the German team on that day were in a completely different class to England. It was 4-1. Could have been a lot. Maybe things could have changed if Lampard's goal was given, but already the way that game was going, the Germans were really taking England to the cleaners. So yeah, there's been a little bit of revisiting of that. I think hopes from the England perspective have been raised by the fact that Portugal were able to beat, were able to win. Sorry, I beg your pardon. France were able to beat Germany, and then they struggled against Hungary. They did perform the other side of the coin very well against Portugal. So we've seen how good they can be. They weren't bad against France, even though they lost 1-0. And they just got themselves out of trouble late on against Hungary. So there's a lot of talent in that team. But England have got plenty of talent as well. So I think it's a proper old-fashioned 50-50 game. I wouldn't want to call anybody as favourites at this stage.
Yeah, that's very well said. I mean, yeah, and that's a very good point about 2010. You know, that idea that, oh, England haven't arrived yet, you know, and we're just waiting to see. And they
had arrived. We just weren't quite aware of just how bad they were. I think that was the point. They had arrived. I remember we went up. I think you may have gone. We went up country before the tournament to see a warm-up game against some locals, and I think they won 3-0 and were absolutely awful. And again, it was very much nothing to worry about, keeping the powder dry, you know, just wait until it really matters in the last 16. We got to the last 16, of course, Germany wiped the floor with them. So yeah, not a great memory for Fabio Capello. And I think throwing it forward to this game, I think lots of managerial reigns, if you like, are judged by performances in major tournaments. And Gareth Southgate did very well in Russia, got England to the semi-final, albeit, and I don't want to sound like a sourpuss here, they beat everyone they should have beaten and then lost to the good teams like Croatia and Belgium. But they got to the semi-final, which no one expected. And then, obviously, disappointing against Croatia. They need, in my opinion, a statement result at the knockout stage of a big tournament. And while this is not the greatest Germany team you could ever reel off, beating Germany in front of 40,000 fans at Wembley in the Euro 2020 last 16, that will go some way towards that and some way towards proving that they can deliver results when the pressure is on.
Yeah, I mean, it would smash, you know, so many sort of unpenetrable windows, sort of glass, you know, that, you know, you go back to, I mean, it's incredible to me to think the last, shall we say, elite team England beat in the knockout stages of a tournament, and I exclude Spain in '96 because they weren't at that.
They weren't the Spain of 2000, were they? Sorry, 2008, 10, whatever. Yeah,
exactly. Was the 1966 World Cup final? It's just you know, we haven't beaten anybody.
Goodness me, I didn't realise it was that bad.
Yeah, it's that bad. I mean, you know, there have been some great performances. We went out on penalties, obviously, but it's just a staggering statistic. And they have to do that. They have to beat the Germany hoodoo. I think to do all that would be such a release, a cathartic moment that you know, I would really fancy England to let's say go far. But
I think if they win tomorrow, I think they'll reach the final.
Yeah,
so yeah, win tomorrow.
Yeah, I think.
I'm not saying they'll win the final because I probably wouldn't fancy them against whoever, a Belgium, a France, an Italy, or whatever. But I think if they win tomorrow, they'll reach the final. I mean, my predictions are notoriously awful, but I do think if at the very least they give themselves a great chance if they win tomorrow.
I mean, exactly. I mean, how much more of an incentive than Sweden or Ukraine in Rome being sort of the worst, and then back to Wembley.
Not bad sides or anything like that. But, you don't want to get carried away with being complacent. But when you look at the other half of the draw, this was the game that was potentially hazardous, wasn't it? When we were talking about, well, if England finished first or second or whatever, some people suggesting finishing second might be better. But in fact, the way it's panned out, if they can get past Germany, they are in the slightly more comfortable part of the draw, if you like. So yeah, big game tomorrow and a lot hanging on the result.
What do you think of this idea that the players are not burdened by history when, I mean, they're sort of reminded of it every day? And I have to say again, you know, this is a line that we heard at previous tournaments, even at Euro 96. I mean, you know, obviously 1990 for them was still fresh, but you know, I just wonder about that. I mean, you know, you're a lot closer to the squad, you're around them a lot more. Do you think history does burden these much younger guys?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the pressure of the games may burden them. I think there was a time when Capello used to discuss the weight of the shirt, didn't he? Feel the shirt weighs heavily on them and drags them down. I think Southgate has cured that. I think basically they lost to Croatia in 2018 just because they just didn't play well enough on the day. I don't think it was pressure got to them. And they also played up against a very smart Croatian side who, having looked very, very average against England in the first game here, have moved their way through to the last 16. So I think it's the pressure of the individual games, not necessarily the pressure of history or anything like that. And that's a hurdle England have got to get over. They've got to show they can pull out results against an elite country in a big game like tomorrow. If they do that, then that's the statement that we've been waiting for from them, and they can go on from there. But again, they have to do it because, as I say, in 2018, they beat the teams you would have expected them to beat, and then lost when maybe they were put to the test against Belgium in the group phase, Croatia in the semi-final, Belgium again in the third place playoff. So tomorrow is big psychologically as well as in a footballing context as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a World Cup semi-final on paper is a World Cup semi-final, but the magnitude of this for all those reasons, psychological, the Germany hoodoo, beating a major team, it's just probably is the biggest game for Southgate in those terms, isn't it? I mean, it is a defining moment.
Absolutely, but it's not his now or never moment because the FA are already talking about extending his contract. I don't think anything will happen to him unless he doesn't want to carry on himself. But it is a defining sort of. I've written along the lines of it is a defining moment because of the two things we've said. If they win, that's that statement victory. It moves them into the last 8 and that better looking side of the draw. If they lose, the old questions will be revisited. Have they really moved on that far? They've almost had a home tournament and they've only reached the last 16. Can they get that big result when the pressure's on them? There are lots of things they can do tomorrow to make them more confident and believe if they can get past this stage.
Yeah, Germany, it looks like that. I think they line up with a back three, don't they? They have that 5 and very, very effective wing backs. How do you think England will line up? What will Southgate be looking at as the main?
Well, there's been talk of a back three possibly tomorrow. Whether he will change, I don't know. But he's utilised that in the past, as we've seen at the World Cups and other games, and he's got the players to do it. He's got attacking fullbacks in there. We wait to see whether Mason Mount will be okay to play after his isolation. Will he continue with Luke Shaw? Will he bring Chilwell in, both very attack-minded fullbacks, or will he revert to what he did in the first game and have Trippier there? Trippier, someone who is basically he's a right back, but he can play on the left. And Southgate is a big admirer of Trippier. He regards him as one of his leaders, has always trusted him. So will he go back to him? It's going to be interesting to see what he does. At the moment, I wouldn't call the team he would pick with any great confidence, but whoever he picks, it's a great chance for them because to add to what we've said, if they get past the next round, then the semi-final and final at Wembley. So effectively, really, it's a home tournament apart from one game.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, who would you like to see up front if you could? Would you like Grealish to start? Do you like? I mean, Saka had a fantastic.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I wouldn't start Saka, and that's no reflection on him because I think he's a really outstanding young player. I mean, the way they played in the first game was good with Foden and Mount and Sterling behind Harry Kane. I thought that worked well. Maybe he'll go back to that. I don't know. But Jack Grealish, a bit the people's champion in England at the moment. He's assumed the role of the man everyone wants to see in the team, and he plays with a bit of creativity. He's got a smile on his face. But I still think he will stay with those two central midfield players, the likes of Phillips and Rice. And then the three in behind Harry Kane. And obviously Harry Kane, he will always pick Harry Kane, and I agree with that. I know he's had a poor tournament so far, but he's a class act, a world-class striker, and in many respects, the one if you want a chance to fall to anybody in the last minute, you still want it falling to him. So I can totally understand why Gareth Southgate sticks with Harry Kane, has been very publicly supportive of him. And of course, his decision to stick with Raheem Sterling has been totally vindicated because he's been the player who scored the goal so far. So, yeah, possibly those three players behind Kane. But again, wait and see because he's sprung one or two surprises. So we'll just have to see what he comes up with tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, in the German media, they've said if they could take any two players out of the game, it would still be Kane and Sterling. I mean, that's a fact, no matter what we say.
Absolutely. I mean, Harry Kane, we've all watched him over the last few years. He's a world class. His goal scoring record is brilliant for club and country. Raheem Sterling I saw quite a lot of Manchester City last season. He didn't have his best season. And towards the end of the season, of course, he was even left out of the Manchester City team, even though he came back for the Champions League final. Pep Guardiola felt able to do without him. So he wasn't at his best, but Southgate trusts him. And so far, he's been excellent in this tournament and absolutely fully justified that faith.
Absolutely, and just a few feet away from where he grew up, Sterling, of course. It's
right, absolutely, yeah.
Story, isn't it? Yeah. We'll be right back with Phil in just watch this, and we'll be back. It's late, but it's here. Euro 2020 and 2021, and Gadsby's England is still the place to come for all your England news throughout the tournament. Follow the drama, the ups and the downs. You know there's going to be plenty of them. Euro 2020 on Gadsby's England. Okay. And we're back with Phil. Phil, thanks for staying. A lot of people just run off into...
No. I've got nowhere to go to until tomorrow, so I'm happy to stay and chat.
How have you enjoyed the tournament so far? And there's been some great play and some good goals. What do you think?
I've really enjoyed it. Been some good games. Germany against Portugal was a great game, and the surprise package really, and especially considering, of course, the trauma that they went through in the first game with Christian Eriksen suffering a cardiac arrest, which fortunately and happily he's now recovering from, have been Denmark. I mean, they've played some outstanding stuff. They thoroughly deserve to beat Wales the other day. They've looked a great attacking side, lots of vibrant, energetic, creative play from them. So I've really enjoyed watching them.
You mentioned Christian Eriksen. Also glad that he's doing okay, because at the time, as we all noticed, we feared.
We all feared the worst, absolutely, and thank goodness, the medical teams and his own teammates were on the scene so quickly. And as we've seen the pictures of him up and about recovering, undergone a procedure that will hopefully mean he can make a full recovery. Who knows whether we'll see him playing football again. I think that's a side issue at the moment. I think the great news is, and everybody is thankful that he's on the road to recovery. That's the main thing for him and his family, of course. And Denmark almost seem to have taken inspiration from it, the way they've played. They've been absolutely excellent, very exciting. And as I say, if they play England at any stage over the next couple of games, that will be a really, really tough game. But the qualification we give is that they could have been in the other half of the draw. And you're talking about those teams we've just mentioned there, France, Belgium, Italy, etc. So, Denmark have been really good. And of course, it was great to see them backed by full stadium. Wembley will be up to 40,000 tomorrow, so that'll change a little bit as well. So that's great.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic bonus for England as well. I mean, Denmark, phenomenal. I mean, for those, a lot of people in the States who are watching won't know, there was an incredible story in 1992 when Denmark hadn't qualified for the tournament, but because Yugoslavia had broken up at that point, Denmark were the next best team to join, and then that sort of miracle.
They basically rang around dragging players off the beach who had gone off on their summer break, thinking this is it, probably having a few Danish lagers somewhere. The next thing, they got the call, right lads, you're in, and unbelievably went on. So they beat Germany in the final, didn't they?
Yeah,
an unbelievable story.
It was
so they've got form.
Exactly. I mean, could they do in 1992? Do you think?
Outsiders, I would say, but one thing is for certain: even if they go out in the next round, they made a real impact on this tournament by playing some really great attacking football, and of course, the unity and support they showed for their colleague Christian Eriksen when he was taken ill in that first game. Very moving scenes when they played Belgium, when they had the tribute after 10 minutes. I played very well against Belgium. It was only the introduction of De Bruyne that turned that game on its head. I wouldn't have Denmark as potential winners, but now as you mentioned 1992, I'll probably be a little bit slower to write them off.
Absolutely. And the Czechs have surprised us again. They seem to have a love affair with the Euros, not so much of the World Cup, but they have an amazing record in the Euros.
Yeah. We all remember. Well, I was going to say we all remember. I don't remember it, but Panenka in '76 with a great winning penalty. I genuinely don't remember that, but I've seen it millions of times. And last night, I thought they were very good. I mean, they were very good in the group stage, won impressively against Scotland at Hampden Park with that amazing goal from Sheep from the halfway line. And again, last night against the Netherlands, who've been looking good. They subdued the Netherlands' attacking threat and then cashed in on the sort of defensive deficiencies of the Dutch to run out fairly comfortable winners. It was a really big win. And again, a side you would not take lightly. England sort of beat them at Wembley, but it was it was almost a little bit of a low-key game, that one. The early goals settled it. Be very interesting to see. You know, it was a little bit more competitive, but yeah, certainly a side to be rated with. Yeah.
Yeah, and a terrific player in Schick, who's been one of the stars of the tournament.
He has indeed, yeah.
It's been amazing, yeah. Changing it a little bit, Phil. People wanted me to ask you this question. You know, how it's been for you doing your job during this year, and because you know, obviously there have been a lot of times when you haven't been at the games. Would you just be at home writing the post match, or
well, I have been going to games. I have been going to games from the moment football started up again in June or July or whenever it was. I was at the first post-lockdown game, which was Aston Villa, Sheffield United, back with a dull goalless draw, apart from one very controversial VAR decision. But I've been going to games. The only thing I haven't been doing has been going abroad for England, other than Denmark. We just got in and out of Denmark in time in September, and I went to the Champions League final in Porto. But that was, even though Portugal at that time was a green country, had to have a PCR test before I left. Had to have a COVID test while I was out there to get into the stadium. Had to have a test 2 days after I got home. So, but you almost become, I mean, it's slightly stressful logistically, but you become used to this. And it's just great to have fans back in the stadium again. I mean, if you go to something like the FA Cup final, there are no fans there. It's a very, very weird feeling. And I went to a game at Wickham. It was the first game where fans were allowed back in. And it's only down the road from me. So I went to cover a game there because it was the first one. And there were 1,000 fans, that's all, 1,000 fans at Adams Park in Wickham. But the difference those 1,000 fans made to the atmosphere, the noise and everything was incredible. And then unfortunately we had a little taste of it at places like Arsenal where there were fans in, and I went to Goodison Park where there were some fans in, and Anfield. It was just all too brief. Fortunately, there was then another lockdown. We had to revert to empty stadia again. But now, touch wood, we seem to be on the road to getting fans back in. I mean, tomorrow night when I go to the game, I will have to show proof of an NHS test or the fact that I'm double vaccinated, which thankfully I am. So either of those things will get you into the stadium, but there's still a lot of red tape that fans have to go through. They have to take those tests or show they're vaccinated. So we're still a long, long way from the days of rocking up the turnstile 5 minutes before kickoff and going to your seat. But it's just great to have fans back in the stadium because it makes such a difference. You knew fans were important to football. What happened when they were not involved in the games brought that into even sharper relief. Really, as I say, when you go to a big game, like you go to the FA Cup final or the Champions League semi-final or a big derby game in North London or Merseyside or Manchester derby, and there's no one in the ground, it's just quite strange. Or you go to that magnificent stadium at Tottenham, 61,000, state-of-the-art, glorious stadium, and there's only like 200 or 300 of us there watching the game, and you can hear everyone shouting to each other and the coaches and the managers, etc. You can hear players squealing as they go down injured, all that sort of thing. It's been quite surreal, and I have to say on occasions pretty soulless. But as I say, hopefully we're on the road back now, and more fans can be allowed in as time goes on, and we'll have 40,000 tomorrow. I've noticed Wimbledon has started today with half of the crowd on centre court, but by the end,
player doing quite well against Djokovic, right?
He won the first set, didn't he? Young Draper, yeah. I don't know what he's doing now. I've not followed it since then because obviously speaking to you, but he won the first set. But it's just, funnily enough, from my own personal point of view, obviously the Euros were cancelled last summer, but as someone brought up in the UK, one of the things that really brought home to you about sport not being around was when Wimbledon was cancelled, because Wimbledon is just that thing, isn't it, in summer, which everybody loves. Yeah. But it's great to have fans back there today. Great to have 40,000 in Wembley tomorrow. So it'll be a little bit more like, well, a lot more like the real thing, because we've had 22,500 so far, and that's been great. But the more the better, of course, as we always say, when it is safe to do so.
Absolutely. I mean, it almost seems like the decibel level is more because they'll probably shout twice as loud tomorrow, but just to be.
Yeah, you could certainly tell when fans were let back in. You could certainly tell they'd had enough shouting at the television, and they wanted to shout at some referees. And in fact, the first game I went to Wickham, just before half time, the referee gave a very, very contentious decision, and as he went off, they were shouting at something at him, which I won't repeat here, but you can guess it wasn't very flattering. And the referee was beaming broadly as if to say, I'm back, I'm back because I've got 1,000 fans abusing me. It's great. But as I say, yeah, it's the fact that there are even only 1,000 in makes a difference. 40,000 at Wembley tomorrow night will be great. But as I say, long way from normality yet. A, because there will still be 50,000 empty seats, and B, because all of us who go have to take tests, etc. But it's absolutely fine. And they've even opened up the media centre at Wembley at last, after months and months. You'll know how we used to sit in that nice media centre and type away. That's finally reopened. So it's just another semblance of normality that's returning, and let's hope we go further.
It's a lovely thought, isn't it? Referees missing being insulted by.
Oh, he was elated. He was beaming from ear to ear as they called him a name which I will not repeat on your show.
I've been called worse on this show, don't worry.
Oh, it was bad.
I can imagine.
You might have been, but I'm not going to say it. I'm working with the BBC. I am not going to say
it. Thank you, Phil. I do appreciate that. I mean, one thing I would say that has been sort of an education about not having crowds in there, and by no means is this that, you know, do you not want them back, was to listen to the players shouting at each other. And in the case of England, I don't know how Declan Rice, where he has those pipes from, but I mean, he is like, the minute England get going, I just remember I was actually in Tirana as well, and I was quite experienced. But you know, from the get-go, just sort of listening to the bellowing.
Well, we had an experience of it. I don't know if you were there when England played in Rijeka against Croatia, and it was played behind closed doors because of some behaviours of previous game. And the thing everybody commented on was how quiet the Croatian team was and how noisy the England team was, particularly Jordan Henderson and Jordan Pickford. Now, whether that's a Sunderland thing, I don't know. But England were very noisy, lots of shouting, whereas the Croatian team seemed to play in this serene silence. And it is interesting to hear some of the shouts and encouragement, or lots and lots of appealing to the referee that we can't normally hear, but you cop that when the grounds are empty. But I'm glad we can't hear it now, not because I don't like listening to it, but because it means fans are back in the stadium. Exactly.
I do remember that game. What the most hilarious thing about that game is there's still some England fans who had managed to get there, and there was a hill sort of overlooking it, and some of them had cut some wire fencing to stand there. And they were singing, you know, and again I have to paraphrase this, they were singing "Your support is which is just some great humour amongst them.
Well, the great thing was that game was in September, and we the hotel where we were staying, all the Croatian holidaymakers were out on the beach. The weather was glorious. So we obviously had to say to the office if we're having a terrible time of it in these 90-degree temperatures in September. And I remember sitting at the game in a t-shirt and a pair of casual trousers. The weather was glorious, but again, it was that weird behind closed doors thing that we didn't realise we would become quite accustomed to not so far down the line, which is incredible to think, really.
That was a lovely few days. My sort of abiding memory is that I remember being in my hotel room, and it was right in the sea was right there, and Henry Winter suddenly plummeted right past me into the sea, which is not something you see every morning.
His body is a temple, Henry. He'll have been getting his exercise quite right too as well. I must admit, I didn't go in the water, but that was because I was far too busy to be doing stuff like that, as you will well know.
Absolutely, start to finish. You're a very dedicated man.
Professional.
I have one more thing that people want to ask you, because and this is very much an aspiring sports writer thing, which is that, and to me, I'm in total awe of it. I couldn't do it. I have a great young writer who's pretty good at doing it for the show, and it's the speed at which you're able to file a match report, and as a writer, I'm always second guessing myself, and I can't, I just can't release something. I feel like I've missed something. I've not done something. I guess the question is, how do you let it go? I mean, there's got to be a point where you're like,
you've got to. If you've got a deadline, better to give them something that they might not like than give them nothing at all. And so you do it as the game goes on. You formulate ideas as the game goes on, and you start writing it before the end. Obviously, there will be times when you have to change it fairly dramatically at the end. I mean, one instance I recall was when England played France in 2004, the opening game. Again, you might have been there.
I was. In
Lisbon. And England were beating France 1-0. We're going into injury time. So you've written a report, all hail England, fantastic victory. Then France equalised. So then you're writing, poor England, denied at the last, draw, blah, blah, blah. Then France scored again. And you've gone on to England's crumble at the finish type of thing. So you went through 3 reports in the space of 5 minutes. But you get used to it. You just get used to it. It's something that, you know, with experience and time, it becomes second nature. And eventually you do realize you can't sit there sort of, you can do another piece afterwards where you can sit and cogitate and gather more longer term thoughts, if you like. With the match report, get it over, get it right, obviously, and write it properly. But the thing you don't do is miss a deadline. If somebody says they want something by that time, better to give them something they may not like in deadline than to give them something they might love but not even make a deadline. So beating the deadline or making the deadline is always the thing.
Well, I'd say it's not just something you give us, Phil. It's usually something pretty extraordinary. So
thank you very much. Thank you, mate.
You know,
$5 in the post. $5 in the post.
You got it. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, look, Phil, thank you so much.
Pleasure as always. Shame we can't do it in person.
I know. Well, hopefully, maybe at the World Cup. You know,
Qatar. Yeah. Well, all the grounds are within 35 miles of each other. So
I know, isn't that crazy?
With a bit of luck, we can meet up for our biannual or 4-yearly coffee, and that'll be great.
Absolutely. I hear it's going to be some sort of utopian monorail linked World Cup, isn't it? Where you literally go.
Is it? Oh, great.
So,
great.
You know, something like, I don't know if you ever saw Logan's Run in the 70s.
Yeah. I can imagine it's some sort of futuristic rollerball type thing. Yeah, no, it'll be good. It'll be good. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, everything will be approaching relative normality in some way by then.
Yeah, I'll do that here. That's for sure. So thank you so much, Phil.
No problem at all,
really
Lee. Anytime.
Taking your time, and see you soon. Let's just say that.
Cheers.
Okay. Thanks, Phil.
No problem.
Well, thank you very much for watching there. Again, one of the best in the business. Such a charming guy. Yeah, if you want to see, as Henry does, the brilliance of being able to write quickly, anybody who wants to be a sports writer out there, to be able to, directly after a match, to get something out that quickly, there are very few people who can do it, because as writers, if you are out there, we're always second guessing ourselves. We're not satisfied enough, and you just run into trouble. So that is an art form. We have a guy, Adam Williams, who is brilliant at that too. But you know, Phil's best in the business. Told you I had some good guests. Who knows? Well, let's see if England win, then we'll hopefully have more. But thank you very much. We'll see you soon. England versus Germany tomorrow. We might slip in a quick show. Wherever you are, hold on, touch wood. You can't see that. Touch my set. England have got to beat, you know, they've got to do something different. They've got to beat the bad luck. They've got to beat the fear. They've got to play better than they did in 2010. It has all the signs of an epic. If it goes to penalties, just hit me over the back of the head, and when I'm out of the coma, maybe you want to let me know what happens. But you know, we can say all the best. It's another one of these defining moments. It will be for English football, no matter what happens, as good or bad, even if it's a dull game. It will be a defining moment in English football. They're very special moments, as nerve-wracking as they are. It's kind of what you live for as a football fan. You know, it's just club football, just not. I don't care the Champions League final or anything like that. It's not as big as this. This is the pinnacle of football, and I guarantee you, no matter what fans say about the players think their clubs are bigger, no matter how the players are diplomatic about their clubs, I guarantee you that every single one of those England players tomorrow knows it's the biggest game they've ever played in. Maybe the World Cup semi-final for some of them. This is the biggest game they've ever played in. Thanks for watching. See you soon.